everyone. Welcome back to Truth or Demons podcast. I'm your host, Stevie, and today I have an interview for you, and I'm very excited about this interview. I got to interview Bill Hall, or William J. Hall, of The World's Most Haunted House, the book, all about the story of Lindley Street. So, I won't keep you any longer. Please enjoy the interview. If you would, please tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Bridgeport, where the event happened. I remember I was about 10 years old myself, Marcy's age, and watched it on TV, about the haunted house. And I asked my dad if it was real, and of course he said no. But that was my dad. He felt if aliens didn't land in your yard, then don't worry about it.
I love it.
Yeah, very practical, but it wouldn't be a good explorer. But anyhow, so and I grew up doing magic. I loved the art of magic, and I did that, and I was involved in music. But the magic led me to the paranormal. I was involved in the psychic research committee, and we never uncovered anything but frauds.
I think that's really interesting. I remember reading that in your book, and it reminded me of Houdini and how he used to go after the fake psychics and debunk them.
Yes. I tried to be a Houdini light or little Houdini.
I love that. So that's what got you into the paranormal, was your love for magic that led to that?
Yes. And, like most magicians, you want to do real magic.
Right, yes.
But I always had an open mind, but I knew Uri Geller was a fake when I tried to bend a spoon myself with my mind, and I couldn't do it. I said, he's a fake. And of course, now as a magician, I notice he not only is he a fake, but he's not very good at it. But I've come to admire him because, he was very poor in a third world country. And that was his choice, be poor or, these people are being amazed by these simple things. Keep doing them because you're eating, So,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
As you get older, your perspective changes a bit. So
that makes a lot of sense. So
yeah, but that's what led me to the paranormal. And then with Lindley Street, I just wanted to know more about it. And after reading the newspaper articles, it seemed very strange because I uncovered a weird fact that an investigation was actually mentioned, but that was after it was deemed a hoax. And the investigation mentioned police officers. It actually came out. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why would they do an investigation? And why would the police ever go along with this stuff if it was, a hoax? And after talking to Joe Tomek, who was the first responding police officer, he's the one who told me about the investigation and that there was all these tapes and hours of interviews. And he said that probably gives you the whole picture. And that's when I found Boyce Batty's name in the newspaper and tracked him down. And now I'm curator of the case files. But that's kind of how I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yes, definitely. That absolutely answers my question. And so, which leads me to my next question is, how did you get started? Like, where did you start when you started putting the book together?
Oh, well, that was a tough thing. I had to go from cassette, and I had to digital. I had to. I won't be able to say it, so I'll just say I had to change it all to digital. Gotcha. And that meant I was listening to interviews everywhere I went. I mean, there was about 30 hours of interviews. I did another like 10 plus myself. But I mean, there was about 30 hours of interviews. And so I was converting it. At first, I wanted to transcribe it, but I had most all the transcribers quit.
Oh, wow.
Once they found out what it was about, and I'm talking whether, no matter where they were from, weird things happened. They lost files.
Wow.
And I I could say it now. At the time, I didn't even put this in the book because it's kind of, I even thought it sounded stupid to me. But on one of the tapes, Boyce mentioned the problems that they had recording there and how strange it was. And when I was listening to Boyce say that, I said, "Oh, geez, he's doing such a good job in these interviews. Now he's talking crazy, But I had problems too. I mean, I have computer problems all the time, so I know what a weird problem is and what. But this is stuff, simple stuff that just never had happened. I can't even give you an example now. It's been a decade, um, but I didn't put it in the book because it just sounded so stupid. But when I had the same thing happen, it was like exactly the way Boyce described it on the tape, and it was exactly the same thing that happened to me. Now, I'm not saying it's paranormal because I don't know, but certainly, it certainly made me do a double take. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. So,
It's not your normal poltergeist stuff. So.
right, right. Yeah, and I love like all the research that's in the book. That's like my favorite part is all the stuff that you shared. And I'm curious, what was your favorite part about all the research?
Oh, I would say the interviews I was doing myself was that was really neat because not only did I uncover um, new witnesses or witnesses I really didn't have on tape. Like, I'll give you an example. The daughter of Mrs. Holsworth, Susan, was in the room and she was like in high school. And they didn't interview her, but they asked her if she saw it. And she said yes. So I tracked her down and was able to interview her. Her mom has since passed and whatnot. So those kinds of things. And then just reconnecting with like WNAB reporter, the now defunct radio station from Bridgeport, but he's still in the business. But I talked to him about his memories of it, and he said the same thing he did then. So that was not new information, but it was still very cool. So I mean, that to me was fascinating, is the uncovering of the new, and of course. Lists. So I guess the process itself with the tapes was the most, and then after it was a nightmare because it was like a soap opera. You had to put it all in order and everything.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I love doing interviews. I get so excited when I get to do a new interview. So, do you have a favorite interview? Was it Susan or?
Well, probably Paulino. He was a seminary student that was there. He went there with the Warrens and Father Charbonneau,
Right.
and we since became very close friends. And but interviewing him and his own opinion about it being the multiverse, and then me going into studying that and thinking he had the best theory that I've heard. Although, as I always say, that would be my theory, but I wouldn't bet my life on it.
Yeah.
We just don't know. But I don't think I don't think these things are demons. I think I see some are very negative or express themselves that way, but we don't. They seem to be on the spectrum, in my experience, from when. I mean, only a decade, but in my experience with poltergeists, they seem very much to be on the spectrum, like we are.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I agree. I definitely don't think it was demons this time.
Yeah. Right.
So, do you personally believe any of the claimed incidents from Lindley Street?
Oh, yes. I believe something very unexplainable happened there. Putting it all together, I mean, it's the first time that we had multiple witnesses of single events, seeing them from all different perspectives, all interviewed separately. tell the same story. Some didn't see it from the beginning, but then one did. Another saw it at the end, but the other didn't. But you had all of these people, sometimes a dozen, and you have these witnesses all telling the same thing. It's not like you have one person saw something and there was one other person that kind of saw it or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't like that. It was the evidence to me was not just what they said, but they all said the same thing in real detail.
Yeah.
Like one of the claims was, oh, Marcy faked the chair going back. And, the fireman said no, and the police officer said no. It said the three of us officers were in front of talking to her. Her hands were on her lap, and she was in Indian position. Her feet, she couldn't even use her feet. I said she didn't do it. So like everything else, you got to look at the details, and that's why I asked myself, trying to be skeptical. Well, when did these events happen? And that's when I learned that so many of these events were happening. I forget the percentage, but so many of these events happened when Marcy wasn't even in the house or in the room, or so you couldn't blame it on Marcy. But of course, that was for the public consumption, because they, the superintendent wanted to get his city back.
Right. So a lot of in the book especially, you talk about how it was such a chaos and so much going on. So how do you feel about the Warrens' involvement in the chaos?
Um, their involvement in the chaos. Well, when they were called originally by Mary
Mhm.
Pasquarella from the psychic, I don't know if I get the name right, Psychic Investigation Committee, or so it was before my time, but she was there and had heard about the events and called Ed and Lorraine and said, you got to come see this as a poltergeist case. And they're like, well, we're kind of booked up and busy. Is this, I mean, what do you know about this? And they're like, well, there's fire engines and police cars and people in the road. And they're like, what? And so Ed goes, well, this sounds like the real deal. We'll be down. And I think it took them like forever to get there, even though they weren't going from that far.
Yeah.
Because the crowd was already forming. So that's when they got there. I thought they did a good job. I mean, they brought Father Charbonneau. They went to get Father Charbonneau, who was probably the coolest guy you'd ever meet. I don't know how he got away with what he did. He went around talking about the paranormal and never got in trouble. Instead, he got promoted, or whatever you call it, in priesthood, but quite decorated in his career. But he was in the National Enquirer talking about Lindley Street, just not to digress. But
Wow.
so we don't know how he got away with what he did. I guess it all depends who your boss is. But Father Doyle, on the other hand, he told the party line, because he had Bishop Curtis and those people, and I don't know who Father Charbonneau reported to, but he was in the newspaper talking. Like I said, he was in the Enquirer talking about Lindley Street. Could you imagine not getting in trouble? His pictures right in there.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. But no, they did a good job. They were very comforting to the family. I think the advice they gave was good. They said, if the activity starts, everybody get up, go in a different room, and it'll calm it down. And that is true advice in general. Just like when you enter a haunted place, it's not like you immediately are going to experience stuff. It's kind of like things have to settle in. That kind of, the multiverse seems to explain all this stuff. But again, that could be too simple too. Could be, I'm open to anything. That's why I try not to get involved in the drama. But no, they did a good they did a good job. I mean, they called the reporters in, and some people could argue, Paul said he doesn't think, he should have called the AP wire in. But on the other hand, you can argue that, there was already a crowd there. If the AP, the press was already there. If the AP wire didn't show up, they're stupid. So it was going to go national anyhow. I think, Ed's point on, because I have him on tape, and his point was he thought this was really the case that could prove to people that this stuff is real. Because they were quite mocked in their day, as well as admired, of course, as you can imagine.
Right.
And I remember seeing him just getting, the skeptics weren't open to any idea of a haunting at all, and I could see just the frustration, and they're trying to show them the evidence or whatever, but they're not even open to it. So
Yeah.
But no, I thought they did a good job here. When they got turned away from the house, that was an agreement with the police, and the police even actually apologized for it. But
Wow.
yeah, they said they did the best they could with what they had.
Okay.
They had to shut it down.
Yeah.
Paul was kicked off with them, and Paul, the family the night before said, "Please promise you're going to come back. Promise you're going to come back. Paul, promise. Ed, Lorraine, promise you'll be back tomorrow." And then they came back, and Ed was, I can quote him saying something like, he says, "That's what happens to every case." He says, if anybody actually does learn the paranormal is real, they just shut it down, he goes.
Wow.
But no, I thought they did okay. Sure, they got press from it, but that's that's how
I love
you
that.
that's how you fund it,
Yeah, and I love this perspective of it so that we can share that with people, because of course when you have both sides. You have people that don't like the Warrens, and then you have people that support them fully, and to have a perspective like yours where you've done all the research and you've seen all the angles, I really think that was cool.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think they did anything. They were there quite a long time for the family. Bought them sandwiches and kept them company, and told them what to do and gave them hope. And Father Charbonneau said some prayers over there. Father Charbonneau was really cool because you ask him what he thinks about all this, and which they did, and I put that in the book. But Father Charbonneau says, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It may be this, it may be that. It's amazing how open-minded he is. When they both saw a shape in the basement, Ed was there and Father Charbonneau was there. And Ed described it as having horns, and Father Charbonneau laughed and said, "Oh, Ed thinks everything has horns." So that was a cool thing because they didn't even have to necessarily agree on what he loved Ed, but he's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna see,
Yeah.
But so it's funny that way. Just like Boyce Batty, who is investigating, he's gonna think RSPK, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, which I'm less a fan of. I think that's a stretch. I've never seen any psychokinesis in my life that wasn't faked, including my own. I hate to say it, but
Yeah, and you have that background to know too.
oh yeah, and Randy did a great job, on TV offering big money to people who'd come forth. Of course, the problem is when he went to when we had real magicians involved, like in Enfield Poltergeist, when they came, their bias got everything screwed up. They didn't even take the evidence or the fact that so much of it was on tape and, that kind of thing. So, they're the fault too. So
Yeah.
it's very hard. In my second book, which was a live investigation, I brought along a friend who was a skeptic because I knew myself that I was going to be skeptical, but I also knew I was writing a book. You know what I mean? So, and I also knew I was in a place where I was going to expect to see things. So things I saw, I was going to interpret as paranormal, or So I wasn't going to do that first. I was still going to eliminate stuff, but I wanted to bring somebody along with me. Not only some people in different areas like Paul came, but I wanted to make sure that it was somebody came along who didn't, believe at all.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was
For
cool.
balance,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I love that. So I have a question for you. How do you feel about the accusation that Marcia told the Goodins that Lorraine faked burning her hand? There's a lot of speculation I've seen online about that. People wonder if Marcia did it because she didn't like Lorraine or if she really saw it. How do you feel about that?
Oh no, I don't think Marcy didn't like Lorraine. I don't think. In when Marcy was interviewed, and this is not only the burn, but on some other occasions, they asked her, for example, what do you think's causing it? And she said the ground. And she said a demon, maybe. I don't know why they're asking her, but she was asked those questions. So when you ask a kid a question, they're trying to give an answer. So they also asked, well, do you know how Lorraine burnt her finger? And she's like, running her finger under hot water or something. So I think she just.
Wow, okay. That's
I
a
think.
great perspective.
Yeah, no, as a magician, I know how to make your hand look, burn and twist your finger and that kind of fingernail and that kind of thing. But that's the kind of thing that was developed by some amazing minds in magic. It's nothing Lorraine would know or do, and the condition wouldn't be right to do the trick in,
Yeah.
So, I looked at it from all perspectives, but Paulino and a police officer were witness to that. They saw the burn form in addition to Ed. And the wild thing is, that actual incident I have live on tape.
Wow.
So I have it happening because Ed happened to have the tape recorder running because he was going to interview somebody. I forget who, but he was going to interview somebody or talk to. I don't know if it was. It could have been one of the fan. It could have been the mother or father. I don't know, Jerry or Laura. But he was going to do an interview, so he had the tape recorder on, and that's when Lorraine got the burn.
Wow.
The fascinating thing is both Paulino and Lorraine both felt that there were four of these entities,
Okay.
if you will. Yeah. But no, I think the burn was real from everything we can tell.
Okay.
Some people say second degree, third degree. I don't know about that. I shouldn't. It wasn't that kind of. I don't think it was that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I
There were no
speculated.
bandages or anything on tape. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine.
I just remember that, because it was recorded live, it's not like they're like, run, get the bandage. It wasn't like that. So it was definitely manageable. Lorraine wasn't screaming or anything,
Yeah, they were just kind of like taken aback by it.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, when I speculated in my episode about this particular incident, I remember thinking to myself, like, if she were to fake that, that would make her a really awful person to fake something like that. So I had a hard time believing that she faked it, and it really made me wonder why Marcia would suggest she did. So for you to explain that the way you did, that really helps me understand it better too.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, it's tough when you look at these things. But no, I thought they did. I thought they did a very good job, and bringing Father Charbonneau along was good because that's of course good for the family too. And he's just a rock star. He's like a psychologist, when you hear him talk. So he definitely, for the 70s too, it's amazing. When he talks psychology and, what the family needed, what Marcy needs, and blah, 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 blah. And, the way he talked was amazing. It would be current today. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like he was saying very insightful, very, some you might call basic things, but very good. Not like your average, what you'd expect from, I don't want to say an average priest, but I guess for lack of better terms, an average priest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He was really exceptional when it came to psychology itself too. But
I
I
think
think I
that's
take.
really good. I think that's important, especially if for him to be working in the paranormal, to have a grasp on psychology as well.
Yes, and he was very open-minded. He himself, even though he did the blessings, he admitted that we don't know what these things are, or where they're from, or what or why they're here, or that kind of thing. We know when they happen, and that kind of thing.
I like that.
How to get how to get rid of it? I don't think I think I think both the Warrens and actually Paulino at the time, although this case changed his whole perspective because he was thinking demons and stuff too, until he felt one of the entities and it felt almost bird-like, where he can feel bone structure and stuff. And he said, "We're not dealing with demons here." He just knew, and that's when he kind of got away from going with Ed and Lorraine, because their theories were so far apart. But Boyce Batty went on cases with Lorraine and Ed, and he completely disagreed with them, which I think is just funny as heck. I think it's kind of cool. Boyce is over there saying it's RSBK, and they're over there saying it's a demon or an entity or spirit or whatever. And I thought that was very cool. But I know when I asked Boyce, Boyce says, "Oh no, Lorraine is definitely the real deal when it comes to being." I forget what he said, but in the case, you can hear it. She's sensitive to it. She got nauseous a lot in Marcy's room.
Interesting. That's very cool to know that Boyce believed in her.
Yes. Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, because he had worked on some cases with her, and found her abilities to be very helpful. Not as far as like specifics, like names and things like that. I think that's when it gets real tricky. But she definitely could feel things, and I think it's the same kind of feeling that a lot of us develop the more if you go into a number of poltergeist cases, you see that they even could hide from you, or if they realize what they are. It changes the game a little bit. It's very, very strange to me.
That is interesting.
The things you learn. So that's why I say they're on the spectrum. I don't think they're demons at all.
Okay, I love that idea. That's really cool. So, I'm wondering, did you have any least favorite moments about writing your book, The World's Most Haunted House?
Least favorite moments. I would say it wasn't the writing as much as wanting to make sure I got the timeline correct and everything. So I built out the timeline, which actually I put the timeline in the new book too, because I came across and I said, "Oh well, that's really cool."
I love
I
that.
said, I could use that too. I could use that in an interview. No, but to solve that, I ended up sending the chapter to Paulino. I sent it to Joe Tomek, and it was fascinating because it was the people that were there that helped edit the book as far as the order. Like Joe Tomek would say, "Well, no, she came in with her foot bandaged over here, and then this happened," or you know what I mean. So I rearranged it. Just there were little things that wouldn't have ruined the book. It still would have been what happened, but it was neat to have the people who were actually there help edit the parts that they were in to make sure that I got it right. Even though I had the tape and the audio, it still was interesting to get their perspective and add into that. And Joe Tomek, frankly, he told me things that he didn't say in the original interview because they were too outlandish, and he didn't want to get in trouble, and and so the story just never ends, like any of these cases.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely experienced that myself.
Yeah.
So, I actually have a question from a listener, if you might be up for it.
Oh, sure.
All right, one of my listeners named Cody would like to know, how did the telling of this story affect your outlook on life and the afterlife?
Well, definitely, that's a great question. Definitely changed my perspective. It convinced me of the paranormal better than me experiencing it, because I have an astrophysicist friend, Mark D'Antonio, and I love when he goes deep into the science, and to have him on an investigation is great because he's going to try to knock holes in whatever you got a picture of, whatever, he's going to, and that's what you should do. I mean, that's how you find out something is, at least to the point of, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and you got to get there. So it changed my perspective because this was it. In other words, you see something yourself, like Mark would say, he would say, I had this experience, but I don't know if it was real or not. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because, because you have to remember the thing about hallucinations are, they seem real, and you can't tell the difference. So it has to be more than one person. I was in this house and I had felt like hundreds of, like, I would say, entities above me, like, felt like swarms of them. Not negative or anything, just swarms of, no feeling at all to it. And I was saying to myself, am I just, am I just excited and think I felt this and see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't know. And then Paulino, he was telling me what he felt. I didn't say, what did you feel? That, he said he felt something. I asked him what it was, and he described the same thing. And I was like, well, see, so you need other people. So for me, it was really changing because it got deep into, definitively for me, that this is some really, really fascinating stuff, because this was a case where they did turn every stone around at the fire department, the police department, and, just all the witnesses and all the things that happened. So, I mean, to me, yeah, that really solidified the paranormal. And my fascination with poltergeists and entities and parasites, and of course changed my life because my dear friend Paulino, I still miss dearly, no longer with us, but our friendship came out of that, and more adventures together, and his multiverse theories, and Mark trying to explain the multiverse to me.
Yeah.
And I could tell you I understand it, but the good thing is I didn't have to do any math.
Yeah, math is not for me.
No.
Well, I love that. So.
The second part of the question. I'm sorry about
No
that.
worries.
About how did it change the afterlife? It didn't really change that much for me, because I don't think of ghosts as spirits of the dead. I'm thinking more of, that's why you see them, they're like, well, they didn't seem dead. They were just going about their daily business and blah, blah, blah. Or, I heard the sounds of the operating general store and people buying things. And, it's, what are they doing? Is this the afterlife? And so I think the parallel world intersect, as my astrophysicist friend would call it, would be what we're experiencing. If the multiverse is what it is. Because in Lindley Street, for example, one of the things that happened was this little model of a boat moved to the left about 4 to 6 inches. And even one of the firemen said, if this is a demon, it's kind of a lame thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think there were two things involved. I think there was the flow of energy from the intersect or the open portal, or whatever your beliefs are. It doesn't matter, because it fits into them all.
Right.
It's definitely an open portal. You can call it whatever you want, another dimension, or or we would call it the multiverse. But if that's what you're saying, not all of the things that happened were entity driven, but then some of them were very much entity driven, like picking up Marcy and throwing her across the room. I mean, that's entity driven for sure. But other things, I think, were just caused by the energy that's there as a result of this condition of the thing being open.
Right. I love this idea, this concept of the multiverse and the intersection of whatever they are, universes or whatever. I think that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it fascinates me too, because it would explain all of the paranormal. It would make sense. Now, we do know that ghosts are not just spirits of the dead, because there's been cases, although they're rare, of the living haunting the living. So you have one family that's seeing this girl walk down the staircase, and they get freaked out, and another girl's having this dream of walking down the staircase with the people freak out. And rarely do the two ever meet, but there was at least a few cases I know of where, in like this case of this girl, she actually was driving by and saw the house.
I know this story. I love this story.
Yeah.
Please
Oh,
continue.
yeah. So, yeah, well, no, but that's it. So we do know that the living does haunt the living. So therefore, we know that they're not just spirits of the dead. So that alone is thrown out.
Yeah, and that one also had the theory of astral projection.
Exactly, right. Now, are they ever spirits of the dead? Well, who knows? I mean, somebody could be dead, but if it's multiple universes, then there could be multiple versions. I mean, in one universe, it could be selling 1 million books. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, I mean, they say that each timeline has everything you can think of you doing. So, yeah.
Right, or non-existing at all.
Yeah.
I guess we better stay where we are. But...
No, that's so cool. I really love that. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. I got so excited, but
no, that's good.
We left everyone hanging with that story. The woman drives by the house that she's been dreaming about visiting in her dreams and goes in to check it out, and the woman selling it says, "You're the ghost who's been haunting my house."
Yeah.
I love that story.
Yes. Yeah, they kind of freaked out.
That one was so cool.
Yeah, there's several cases of that, and when there's not cases of that directly, there's definitely those cases where it has a similar properties to it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I really like this idea, this theory that surrounds that, because that's really fun to think of all the possibilities.
Yeah, and it would make sense. I mean, Paul had a poltergeist case where they were atheists, and he got rid of the poltergeist with a joke book.
Oh wow!
So it's all about breaking the connection, and I try to think of alternatives, like what if they don't want to be here?
Right.
Well, that might tick you off.
Yeah. I like that alternative ways of thinking. I love thinking outside the box because you get so many cases where they just put everything in the box and they don't ever think outside of it.
Right. Yeah. And then you can never have a dialogue. It's always a monologue from there on in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't ever convince them of anything else.
Right. And I don't put down people who believe that prayers are the way to solve it. I mean, in some cases that does work. If the people are religious, religion could be a good tool. If the people aren't religious, it's not much of a tool.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. So what do you think, or do you even think that the activity came to an end? And if so, what do you think brought it to an end for Marcy and the Goodens?
Oh, well, what brought the activity to the end was Marcy was home. If you remember, Marcy was home after being beat up in the cafeteria at school. And that's when it really heightened up, because she was stuck at home with her mother and being the tutor who she liked, but still. Yeah. And that was, but what really broke it was after that real heightened activity was when they finally got Marcy into St. Patrick's school.
Back where she was happy.
And, when Father Doyle, he brokered the deal, got a scholarship so the family would be able to afford to send her there, and they were nice to her there and everything, and it petered out right after that. I mean, that was... it was a classic poltergeist case of whenever you have a poltergeist, you have to break that frequency.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because I honestly forgot about that part, and you don't hear that part a lot in the retellings of this story.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, and evidently I didn't heighten that enough in the book, because some people ask about that. So I'm like, I guess I didn't do that good.
But, well, I tried to remember it, but it's like There's so much. Like
Yeah, there's a
how you
lot.
put that all together, just it amazes me, and I'm in awe of it. And I just think you're incredible for putting that all together and making it make sense as much as you did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a lot of work. It was the hardest book, definitely.
I bet.
But I did want to do it if it wasn't, if I didn't do it justice, because it was just too great a case with
Right.
the evidence that was there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think your book has, like, if anybody ever wants to know about this story, I highly recommend the book just because of everything that's in it, because you really did cover all the angles and it wasn't biased and it wasn't just highlighting one person or one group of people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's what I tried to do. I mean, I started out expecting to find out that it was a hoax, but thought it would be fascinating anyhow. But when I read the newspapers, I realized that, geez, a lot of police officers are saying, some firemen are, some people are saying some weird quotes here.
Yeah.
Let me look into this further. And even then, I thought, well, maybe, a magician friend of mine, we were talking daily, and he's like, "Is it a hoax yet?" And I'm like, "Not yet." And he's like, "Well, do you think it's real?" I said, "Well, I don't know, not yet. I don't know yet."
Yeah.
And it was after about 20 hours of interviews that I'm like, I told him, I said, "It's real. Something happened.
Yeah.
It definitely was a poltergeist, whatever that is.
Yeah. For sure. By definition, it fits.
Exactly right. Something unknown happened there. I mean, I know how to fake everything that happened there, but there's no way they could have, and there's no way I would have. So it's just, and these guys were good. These police officers were good, with the refrigerator floating and stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, they looked underneath and downstairs and on top and moved it. It's not like they all ran out of the house screaming, although one did back out of the house and got into his car. But I mean, but still, but no, they did a really good job of, investigating the area to see,
Yeah.
because that's what you think. They see a lot of weird stuff. So they're like, well, maybe somebody's faking it. The Exorcist came out not too long ago,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about it is how you describe how they did try to answer it any way they could, not just, one way. They really did check like the foundation and making sure everything was secure and all of that. And like I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I did too. I was really impressed with that. And Jerry, did the same with, switching uh, electric, taking apart pipes, thinking there's an animal that's causing sounds. And, so he did a lot to himself.
Yeah. That's really cool. Speaking of animals, how do you feel about Sam the cat?
Oh, I think there was audio phenomena that happened there. Um, I don't think the cat itself spoke. I think it's like what they would call the proximate effect, with our hearing. If the
Mm-hmm.
sound comes in that direction, you think it's the cat. And I think an entity would think it would be quite entertaining, quite frankly, to make it seem like it's the cat. I don't think the cat itself actually talked at all, but there were knocks on the door. Uh, there was a footprint incident. There was the chimes going off. And so there were things, there was other audio phenomena, and then there was the voices from the basement, which Jerry said was the cat, which I think is simplistic. I mean, he didn't see the cat,
Mm-hmm.
he's hearing it. So I don't think the cat talked. I think there were cases of audio phenomena. The cat also had an operation, was making weird noises too, which didn't add to it based on the timing of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I
So I
remember
think
reading that part.
yeah, so I think it was the cat making weird sounds from the operation, but I think there were actual audio phenomena there.
Very cool. So when I read your book, I saw that at the time of release, you had a website set up to share some of that audio. Do you plan to do that again?
Yes, I planned to put the poltergeist sounds back up. That was my faux pas. So and the people who get the book will also get a discount. I'm going to be um, probably putting out some of the audio, not all of it. I can't, but sharing some of that a little bit more with people who are really into it.
That will be awesome. I'm excited for that.
Oh, cool.
All right, so I just have a couple more questions. One of them is I just want to touch on this really quickly. I do not want to go further than the one question, but everybody is dying for me to ask you this and have you answer it. Did you ever hear mention of a 7 to 9 year old little boy named Joey being present for the happenings of 1974 at Lindley Street?
No, not once.
Thank you for that. And finally, you're on my show today for a very special reason. That reason is you've re released your book for the 50th anniversary edition, The World's Most Haunted House. Would you please tell us a little bit about the re release?
Yes, it actually doesn't contain the book or, the book itself. The book itself is the case, not the case, the, the story and everything.
Yes.
This book is a collection of photos and archives, case files. People have asked for years to see some of the data and to see the photos and color and that kind of thing like they do in lectures. So I'm making it a full color 8.5 by 11 book that's going to have photos, some you never saw before, Marcy as an adult. Some of the things to catch people up who don't have the update to what happened to Marcy's in there, and some of the original notes provided by Bill Roll. He was originally supposed to be at Lindley Street, but couldn't make it. I think he was on his way to Enfield. I forget.
Oh, wow.
I could be wrong, but I remember it being it ended up being a famous poltergeist case. It was either that one or I think it was Enfield. Anyhow, Bill Roll took notes, so some of his notes and photos will be in there too. So it's a real cool collection, and some of my photos and some photos of me when I was a little tubbier. But Boyce at the release of the book finally getting, I think, bigger recognition. He released it to the psychic community, but unfortunately, the word didn't get out the way he thought. So he had given me everything and said, "Go to town." And he it was great. I guess I heard the best thing from him when he said, "You know more about this case than I do."
I love it.
But I had to, if it wasn't for him. So thanks to him. But anyhow, if you go to williamjhallauthor.com, you could pre-order your copy now.
Awesome.
And you get some extra with it. And if you want the original book, you can get a signed copy there, or it's on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. You can go to Barnes and Noble, or wherever fine and lousy and mediocre books are sold. You'll find that
awesome.
book there too.
I love that, and I will make sure I link it in all my show notes and all in descriptions and stuff, so everybody can find it easily.
Oh, thank you, and get a copy soon because rent's coming up.
I just got my copy. I'm very excited. I am so excited for it to come. And okay, so before I let you go, I wanted to ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to mention or anything that sticks out in your memory about writing the book that you'd like to share.
I guess when I think of this, I always think it's the Roswell of haunted houses, even though Poltergeist is more a haunted family than a house. And I also want to say that the publisher picks the title, and because my book was traditionally published, they picked The World's Most Haunted House. So
wow.
I've gotten some flack for that. My original title had like the address of the house in it and everything. And they're like, "No, we can't do that," But they had a series, The World's Most Haunted Hospital, The World's Most Haunted. They had, I think, a few of them. And so when they came to this one, they said, The World's Most Haunted House.
Okay.
And then so that's how it came about. So some people thought I was being a little conceited, thinking, The World's Most. The publisher picks the title. I think it was a good title, or is a good title, because I think in retrospect, although at first I was a little iffy about it, because it's a poltergeist and everything else, but I was being a little bit too specific and not thinking like a publisher would. But I think World's Most Haunted House, I think it is in terms of witnesses and public display. I mean, I think it was a fascinating and intense poltergeist case itself, but I think aside from that, with the witnesses and everything, it just made it the world's most haunted house. It just became so well known. It went around the country, and Boyce said it hit Australia and China. Haven't been
Wow.
able to verify that, but it definitely was in every state.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's one of
so
my
it,
favorite stories just because of how well documented and how many people saw things they couldn't explain.
Yes, and the fact that it's relatively recent, like the Bell Witch, you can cite as a case that would be wow, that also was another one. But it's old, it's lost in antiquity, and how do you verify things? And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt this one, we were able to get really close. I mean, these interviews were done while there was still activity, and some of
Yeah.
these interviews were done. They were done by force. They were forced to be police were forced to be interviewed and taken off the streets to be interviewed about this case after it was declared a hoax. So, I mean, um, to me, those things make it that way. But I just wanted to point that out about the title because a lot of people ask, and I've got not a lot, but a little bit of flack for that.
No, I
I'm like,
understand completely because
yeah,
yeah, a lot of stories like to tout the most famous, most haunted, most yeah.
right, exactly, yeah.
Well, that's cool.
But
I'm really glad.
I think in terms of the public display, it probably is the world's most haunted house.
No, I can definitely agree, especially with all the research and the things I've read, and it's a lot. And yeah, and there's not many stories out there that have that much.
Yeah, that's what drew me to it. Obviously, I went down the rabbit hole.
And I love that. And I love that you got to explain the title because I didn't even think to ask that. So that was really cool.
Oh, thanks.
Alrighty then. I would say we can wrap it up now. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on my show and giving this interview. I cannot wait to put this out and I cannot wait to see this new book. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I will let you go for now and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
All right, you too.
All right.
And everybody out there.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. This was so much fun. Thank you again to Bill for coming on my show. It was so much fun, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Until next time.